Today on the Business Builders podcast, we're continuing our series about effective networking and exploring how to go about doing it like a pro. So in this episode, we discuss the 4 professional networking disciplines, and they are researching your opportunities, identifying your targets, finding alignment with your targets, and following up. Well, welcome to the Business Builders podcast. We are your hosts. I am Brenton Gowland.
And I'm Ron Tomlin.
And it's starting to get towards event season, Ron.
It is indeed. And yes, we're starting to see more things happening.
Yeah.
We had an all-tech day at Ayers House the other day.
What is an all-tech day for those of us who are not initiated?
Okay, so all the tech groups in South Australia get together and we had a couple of speakers and it was all about networking as well.
Well, that's good. And just one more clarification question, because we've gone through the stats of our podcast recently and really happy to say we've got people from about 80 different countries listening, and that blows my mind. But some of those people, some of us who are listening might not know what TEC stands for. What is TEC?
TEC, the Executive Connection in Australia. It's got different names in different countries. Vistage in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about groups of CEOs who get together and talk about their issues on a regular basis.
Great. Okay. So you all came together and had an all-in tech day where people networked and so forth?
Yeah, and talking about the economy and various perspectives on the economy. It's good to hear different people give their perspective because it's pretty clear that at the moment there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
Yeah.
And getting different perspectives gives you a better handle on how much uncertainty there really is. And I suppose prepares people for dealing with that uncertainty.
And that recession word is being bandied around all around the world. So the US, that recession word is quite loud over there. It's not so loud in Australia at the moment.
No. As the old saying goes, when America sneezes, we get a cold. It will have a flow-on effect. And, for anyone who thinks, in my opinion, that we got through COVID and everything's going to be sweet because, we handled it well, there's going to be consequences.
Yep.
And we're living with those consequences now. And it's not uncommon to think that things are going to go down for a little while.
And that's why it's so important to make sure that we're really on top of things like networking. I remember I've read this book and I can't remember who it's by at the moment. It's called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. And I'll look up who that is, but you can Google that. And it's a book about building your network before you need it.
Absolutely right.
And I think at times like this, when uncertainty is so high, it's your network that is massively important. As you all know, we're on episode 3 here today of our effective networking series. And I think it just really does, again, highlight the need to get out, to build your network, to build strong relationships, because that's how we get through hard times.
That's right. And that's the whole idea behind those tech groups that I was talking about. I often describe them as insurance policies for the hard times.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, investing in your support network for when things get tough.
Yeah, dig your well before you're thirsty. Insurance policy for the hard times. It's all good. And as we come towards Christmas, as we know, we're going to have more and more parties, networking events, end-of-year functions, and they're all networking opportunities. Last night I was at the Defence Teaming Centre Gala dinner, 800 people, and the tuxedos are starting to come out again, black tie events. Always wear them for about 2 months a year, like a number of events, and then it's back on the shelf.
Well, they get put back in mothballs for a little while.
But anyway, we digress. So yes, we are absolutely getting stuck into our effective networking series, episode 3 today. So just in review, Ron, let's just talk very quickly. What have we done so far?
So far we've looked at the purpose. Why are you doing networking, and having a good understanding of the activities that you're going to do.
So defining why you're networking?
Yeah, absolutely. Understanding your why. Planning.
Yes.
And that's all about being able to map your network and the various networks that you have, scheduling activities and events in that, preparing for the networking that you're going to be doing in terms of things like elevator pitch, your mindset, your materials like business cards.
And that was our last episode 31, that we discussed that.
And then actually putting time in your diary to do this stuff.
Scheduling, very important. And actually developing a calendar of activity.
Yep, absolutely. So today, it's all about the doing.
I like it. So before we get stuck into the doing, let's get stuck into our sponsors. So our sponsors are
SA Business Builders, and they're a group of people who get together and do what we call genuine networking, which is about developing long-term relationships and getting to know each other and being genuinely curious.
Yeah. And so, again, if you're listening for the first time, what we mean by that is SA Business Builders. Obviously, it's a group in South Australia. So our international listeners, well, there will be networking events in your area and we encourage you to get involved. But this particular networking event has no structure, has no speakers. It's just good people getting together, same time, same place. And we've got a bunch of hosts who run around, just make sure everyone's talking to everyone. And they're really good times, just really genuine, getting to know you sessions and aligning on things that are important. And sometimes people work together, but sometimes people just need an ear.
And that's about having a support network for when the things are good and when they're not so good.
Correct. And then we've got AdaptCo.
That's
which is
you.
me. And I'm learning more and more. So I go into companies and I basically help them get unstuck and change. And I do that through the application of marketing and business strategy services. But I'm learning more and more that it's about helping leaders make the transition and to change, because if a business is going to change, that leader at the top really has to change, because then the business itself can follow. And so I'm learning more and more that the service that I provide is helping those business leaders make those changes in their business by making changes in themselves.
So very important.
It is. And that's our sponsors for this week, SA Business Builders and AdaptCo. So on to our topic. So today we're doing the doing, Ron. Do you want to give us, just before we get cracking so people know exactly what we're doing, no pun intended, a bit of an overview for what we're going to be speaking about?
Okay, so in trying to get the doing into a sort of framework, we've come up with 4 activities that are associated with the doing.
Good.
Number 1, research.
Yep.
Number 2, targeting.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And number 4, follow-up.
So research, target, align, and follow up.
That's right.
I like it. I like, we've come up with a few of these little things to make it easier. It's like the Roy G. Biv. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
From school, what does it stand for? Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow,
blue, indigo, violet.
Yeah. So in this particular case, it's RTAF.
Oh, wow. I never thought of that. AFU.
Yeah, true. No, research, target, align, and follow up. And look, it's really important. So if we get stuck into this, if you've just done the whole mapping and planning, so what we spoke about last episode was the planning. Once you've got that plan in place, you're going to start going out and going to events. So you might be going to a networking event, a social event. Counts, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Going to the pub, going to sporting events, attending conferences, meetings, speakers. If you're doing a course, if you're doing your MBA, there's an opportunity for networking.
Yeah, so that's interesting, isn't it? Because that means any studying you're doing. So there's a lot of business leader courses where I know that people I know have done them just so that they can rub shoulders with other CEOs.
Yeah.
And you've got charity events.
Meetings within your own organization, meetings with other organizations. You'll meet new people. That's an opportunity for networking as well.
So there are tons of networking opportunities. So you've done the planning. You've got a scheduled networking activity, which it could actually be everything from a phone call through to, as we were talking about events just then. So you start by, for each of those activities, doing some research. So what that means is, like, if you're going to an event, I'll give you an example. So we went to the DTC dinner last night, which means Defence Teaming Centre, and we got a list of everyone who was there, and then we got the tables. So we got a whole list. And you can get these lists if you ask.
If you're diligent and you do the asking. Yeah. Not all organisers will do that, but oftentimes they will provide everyone with a list of who's going to be there.
You just have to ask often. But you can go through those lists and then you can start to go, oh, I want to get to that person, that person, that person. That's someone of interest. They're not. I know what table they're in. So you've done research. And for me, that's mapping out the room, understanding who's where, understanding who I want to talk to. And there's only, like, out of a room of 800, to be honest, there's only about 5 people I wanted to really talk to last night, but I knew exactly where they were before I went to the event. Some of them I knew already. Some of them I didn't know. And I just had a plan for who it was that I was targeting. So the very first thing is research.
And that research can be spontaneous as well.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you gave me an example when we were talking about this before. Go to an event, it might be spontaneous, and 1 or 2 people there and no one else. You can go to those people and say, hey, listen, you know me, who should I be talking to here? That's doing a bit of research.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always a comforting thing too, because sometimes when you walk into a room full of people you don't know, finding that one person you do know is great. And just, yeah, research can be just going and having a conversation, as you just said, and finding out if I should meet anyone in this room, who should it be? I'll introduce you to two people, Brenton or Ron, and there you go. You've done a bit of research.
So that leads very nicely into, once you've done your research, identifying who you think you want to speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So having your target, which should align with the purpose of your networking in the first place.
100%.
So if you're looking for, if you're part of your purpose of networking is to identify referrers for your business, then you know that I'm going to be looking for referrals from people who are good at referring at the event that I'm going to. So again, pulling back to, I know now who's going to be there. What's my purpose in being here? That will give me priorities for the type of people that I want to speak to.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the research is about too. Research, really, the outcome of the research is identifying the targets that you want to actually get to know. Because, okay, I want to win work. If that's your purpose, I want to win more work, whatever else, you might get to know those people and go, maybe not. But at least you know that I want that. I want to have a conversation with that person, and see if there's alignment. If it's, if the purpose of your network is simply furthering your ability to have relationships in your reach, then you might go to a room and go, who are some of the most connected people? How do I get to know them? And yeah, it's very important that you really, it increases your success rate, let's say, if you actually know what you're about before you walk into the room. Because random networking is okay, but you meet random people. So random networking might mean I will meet 50 people, of which 3 I want to talk to. And you work that out by the end of an event, or, at some point you have very little time to talk with those people. Sure, you might get their details, but quality of conversation at a networking event really leaves a good first impression.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that I don't know about you, but I've certainly been to events where you see those guys or girls and they're moving around and they're not spending a lot of time. They're not really that interested in anything but getting names and business cards, and you tend to cringe away from those people.
Can I be really honest with you?
You can.
It means they're lazy.
Yeah.
So, because when you do see those people going to an event and they just want to swap business cards, and this is going to be terrible, but I'm going to say it, that they remind me of happy little puppy dogs. Hi, my name's, hey, you want to swap business cards? Oh, I can do this. And then you've got other personalities which are a bit more forceful. It's lazy. And you see how if you do the research, you can be much more relaxed about, I'm going to talk to 4 people. Sure, other people might talk to you along the way, but you might have that as a transient conversation and you might get something out of that and be quite surprised, but you're not actually worried about selling to this person because you know that you want to talk to Fred, Joan, and Jennifer, and I don't really need to find out too much about anyone else, but if I do, that's a bonus. But then you're not walking through with some sort of real agenda that people are going to go
about just contact rather than it's transactional rather than relationship.
So that kind of networker, and calling it out, identifies them as being lazy, and that attitude will flow through on how they work as well. I would guarantee if you're targeted about things,
and it makes it much easier, I think, in terms of the next stage, which is alignment. Because the first step in alignment is to go in with the right mindset. And if your mindset is, I'm just going to transact a number of exchanges of business cards, it's not going to help develop relationships. But if you go in with the mindset that I'm going to be genuinely curious, you've got a much better capacity to ask good questions and want to find out about the other person, their business, their role, their background, etc.
Yeah. So let's just go back then. So we've done the research. We've worked out who we're going to target. We go and target those people. And now you're talking about alignment. So let's talk about what alignment means, right? So you've just kind of given us an overview, but that means when I go up and say hello, right from the get-go, that you're looking for alignment, yes?
Yeah, alignment. In other words, I think this is the person I want to speak to and the type of person or the type of organization that I'm looking for to build my network, but I've got to find out about that. I've got an idea beforehand, but this is about finding out whether there is good connection,
so
potential for connection.
It's about finding alignment between both of you.
And if you've done your research and you know who you want to speak to, you have some information about what they personally are on about or what their organization is on about. So you will have some ideas on how to start conversations with them about what they'll be interested in. Because what you're doing is not telling about you, you're seeking information about them and the type of problems they have or the type of things they're interested in so that you can see whether there's that potential for connection and real value exchange between the two people.
Yeah, great. So if we're trying to find alignment, the real practical things that we can put into or that we can actually share with our listeners is the fact that if you're trying to find alignment, you start with questions, because you're basically doing research on the person. Yeah.
You're using your ears, not your mouth.
So you go in with questions that open up a conversation.
That's right. And it's not closed questions. It's questions about who they are, who their organization is, seeking information about their perspectives. So that's that whole thing about genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
If you were genuinely curious about this person, and you should be, then what are the sort of questions you're going to be asking to get information that helps you understand who they are, who their organization is, and what's important to them?
Yeah, and those questions don't have to be complex. Everyone asks that question, what do you do? And that's a very normal opener to a conversation. I personally hate it because I tend to avoid. If you go to an event, it's really simple. Like last night.
It's lazy. That's what it is.
It's terribly lazy.
Yeah.
Last night, the biggest thing on my mind was actually, so tell us about the event. What did you think of the event? Are you guys up for an award? Blah, blah, blah. Did this happen? Did that happen? So you've got some common ground and you eventually get to that part. I always try and ask questions about the other person until they ask questions about me. I don't give up anything about what I do until they actually start asking me about that.
And look, I've got to say, in my experience, a lot of people will never get to that point.
That's true. But then you weed out the people who are not going to work anyway or not align.
If you're doing this well, in my opinion, you are continually asking questions. And, I've always said to people, try this. When people ask you questions about yourself, just as an experiment, an exercise, say, well, that's not anywhere near as interesting as what you were talking about. Can we continue talking about that?
Yeah, I like that.
And it's a good, look, it's not about deflecting, but what you'll find is you can do this quite easily if you're genuinely interested in what people are talking about. So
this is where the alignment comes in, because alignment is asking questions to basically learn about the other person, their business, what they do. And we can probably come up with some questions at some point and put them into a podcast. We might do a podcast maybe at the end of this series about the kind of questions you can ask, because I think that's important. And just to make sure that you can open up conversations and so forth. Can't do it on the spot right now. We'll get to it. But you ask those questions to learn, because when you then do learn, the way you actually respond, like someone might say, blah, 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 I'm doing this project where we've got a bit of a challenge where this, that, and the other. And you might not have talked about your business, but that gives me the opportunity to go, wow, that's really interesting because we've worked on a similar project over here and this is how we solved that. And you haven't mentioned what you do. You've just, brought some real alignment by that statement, because the more you learn, the more it gives you the ability to go, oh, that's interesting because we've done something similar or this has happened. And then all of a sudden it's like, tell me more about that. What is it you do again? Oh, I didn't ask you before. Funny. That's interesting. Wow. I remember, and it's really interesting. We were in Queensland at a networking event with, again, defense recently. And there's a lot of defense stuff that I go to, obviously. But this guy came up to me, and I won't tell you his name because I saw him again last night, but he said to me, you're not going to like me. I'm your competitor. That was the best intro ever. And we just had a laugh, and then we talked through the rest of the evening and so forth. And at the end, he said to me, you know what? I want to come talk to you guys on your stand tomorrow because I want to give you overflow work. We never once really talked about working together. He talked about the challenges he had, what we were doing. I shared some information. We talked about football, all those kind of things. But we found alignment through all sorts of other different conversations we were having because we didn't take ourselves overly seriously, right? There was no pressure on our backs. And that conversation has continued.
Mm. Well, it comes down to the truism, and it's been accredited to
I love that word, truism.
Truism.
That's so advertising.
it's been attributed to a number of different people, but I finally found the source. The first person who said it was Teddy Roosevelt.
Really?
Yeah. And he said this: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Oh, that's great.
And, the truth of the matter is I don't want to talk to people who don't care about me.
Yeah.
And so first you've got to establish that there is a level of interaction, a level of connection before they want to find out what you do.
That's all about finding alignment, because you need to know you care. Like, I've had bad experiences as well where we've rubbed each other the wrong way and we know that we don't care about each other, so it's not going to work. But you're 100% correct. It's so many different levels. But yeah, people open up when they know you're genuine.
Yeah. And again, that comes back to that mindset of genuine curiosity and seeking to find that connection that you can have with another person and seeing whether they will add to your network and you'll add to theirs.
Yep. So once you've found alignment with someone, so that indicates non-lazy attitude and a quality of conversation, not a quantity of conversation, right? So I target 5 people in a room of 800, seriously, rather than 70 people in a room of 800 and have these really racy conversations with people that get you nowhere. But I have 5 really deep conversations, end up at an event. You'll go back to another venue afterwards generally and continue the conversation. Fantastic. But those quality of conversations mean when you follow up the next day, and it's funny, we're doing this at 9 o'clock in the morning, everyone. So I've actually got business cards sitting there that people want follow-ups today. So I will be doing that today.
And follow-up is all about, you've put the time in, you've put the effort in to talk to someone, establish connection, see that there's value on both sides in having further conversations. It means not stopping there. It means doing the work that will continue that conversation afterwards. And that could be as simple as sending that person an email.
Okay. So you've done the research, you've targeted the people you want to speak to, you've gone to the event or you've gone to the meeting or you've rung people on the phone, whatever it is, and you've targeted, let's say your target was 5 people in a room of 800, but you had really good conversations. You found alignment with 3 of those because you did your research well. That's actually pretty good, right? So I've got 3 people to follow up the next day. Let's talk about follow-up. What do we do?
Well, like I said,
what are the important things?
It's about maintaining that conversation beyond. If you find out, as an example, that a person is particularly interested in the latest ideas on recruitment, you might have some information on recruitment that they'll find valuable.
Yep.
So it's about genuinely finding what the connection was and how you can add value to that person. Whether it's an article, I like to do that because I do have a number of articles and I'm continually researching things that are of interest to business people. It could be that you talked about someone who might be of mutual interest. So you do an email connection with them. It might be that they were seeking information on a particular service that someone you know provides.
Well, that's interesting. So if we're talking about quality of relationship, so we've talked about in the past that you must follow up, really within 24 to 48 hours, I would say 24. And you got to make contact with those people. And we've said in the past that you might have X amount of people that you're going to follow up with, but 3 of them you might call. And a couple of them you might just send emails to because you know that you've got their business cards, but you haven't gone into that depth. But what we're talking about here is the quality of the follow-up as well as the timeliness of the follow-up. So you're talking about doing, in a sense, some work and going out and finding something that's of interest to people and giving them that value. So the follow-up includes the value. So one of the people I was speaking to last night, we ended up talking about the podcast because luckily enough, some people came and talked to me about that last night at this event, and they're actually looking for a business development person. I said, well, we've just done a series on that. And there's an episode about how to identify quality BD people. And this person was like, I really want to listen to that. So today I'm following them up with that and then booking a lunch. So I've got that all written down. To that point, that's easy. But you're talking about going out and doing a little bit of work and finding the materials for these people that will further the relationship, really.
Yep. And I suppose spending some time reflecting as well.
Talk about that for a minute. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that we've got in this very hectic world that we live in is that we don't provide ourselves enough time or schedule ourselves enough time to reflect. So after an event, maybe the next day, it's reflecting, how could I be of use to that person? How can I demonstrate through our connection that I can be of use to that individual, that they want to have me in their network? And I've talked about a couple of ways: articles, connections with other people, information about services that you might not provide, but you're aware of, connections with other organizations. Whatever it is, reflecting on, well, where could this person sit in my network and how could I be of value to them to start with? Because I think a lot of times when we network, we think about, well, how is that person going to be of value to me? And I think you've got to start with an idea that how am I going to be of value to them to demonstrate there's something in this for them to start with.
Well, there is a principle. The principle is give, ask. That is an obvious weight imbalance, right? If you want to be able to have influence, you got to give to people because you got to earn it.
That's right. That's right.
And, you know, we talk about, like, that's part of the reason we do the podcast, because we want to give to people and earn the ability to be able to then do other things and work with people and help them in other ways. But sometimes you really do. You got to give people value. It comes down to most people want to try before they buy, if you like, and belong before they believe.
Yeah. And it really comes down to that. That's the way we've been conditioned in our society, is that I want to see what I'm getting before I get it.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to connect with this person, when I'm going to establish a relationship with them, I've got to see that there's value in it for me. And that's normal.
That they have my best interest in mind.
So I think you've got to demonstrate that to start with. The more you can find ways to do that and follow up with these people, the better the chance of establishing a relationship, developing your network in that way.
Yeah, okay. So again, just recapping. So we've found our purpose. So we've defined our purpose for networking. That was 2 episodes ago. The last episode, we spoke about planning and mapping your network, scheduling your activities, and then preparing to do those activities. And this week we spoke about the doing, and the doing is summed up by research, target, align, and follow up. And I might change that to find alignment. Research, target, find alignment, and then follow up, because I like that kind of better.
Okay.
Because it denotes inquiry. But I think if you do remember these things, because these are, Ron and I always have a bit of a workshop before we do these podcasts. And I was saying to Ron that this is the kind of stuff that it comes naturally to me now, but oh boy, it didn't come naturally to me when I started doing this. And we'll talk about that with the review and improve part. But
which is our next episode.
Yeah. But it becomes really intrinsic when you embed these things in your mind. And it comes down to mindset, like we've spoken about in the past. Because if you have these things in your mind, there is also a comfort in understanding how relationships are formed in a networking sense. Because it helps you understand the steps that are involved in building those relationships to end up in a working relationship.
And that takes time.
Oh, yeah. So these 4 things, if you keep them in your mind, or if you actually do them as you go out and prepare to network, will really serve you well. Do your research, target who you want to talk to for whatever reasons. You can always deviate a bit if you're in the room, because, you know, Ron was talking about going into a room full of people. Part of your research might be talking to people. Well, you might talk to one of the people that you've got on your target list, and they might go, you should really meet such and such over here. Well, that's a live kind of piece of research. You still won't look lazy because you're of purpose. I always love those events where that happens and you say, well, can you introduce me to them?
And then once you're talking to people, find alignment and follow up.
Absolutely. So 4 things, again, like we just said, those things will help you really well. And as you said, next week we're going to be talking about
reviewing your results. Because there's no point doing all this stuff and then just saying, oh, it was kind of interesting. You've got to see what works, what doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's about having some type of metrics, some type of what does success look like. And we'll talk about that next week.
Well, and that's very interesting because, like I just said, that when I started this, it didn't come naturally, but I had to understand what was going on, what was my baseline, what was I actually like, to understand how I needed to change, which is where, as you said, the review process comes in.
Good. Well, in that case, it's bye from me.
And bye from me. We will see you in 2 weeks' time as we move towards Christmas and things get festive. So we hope you have a great festive couple of weeks, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
And enjoy your networking.
Enjoy your networking.